Hello and welcome to this week's live. I am Mimi. I am your host. I am the proprietress of Gaia Blooming. I bring you daily astrology so that you can work with the energies. And I am here once again with Ryan and Nicole Oman. And this week we are going into the cavern of the heart. So get ready.
Yeah. Well, it's really I feel like the heart chakra is the center of not just our work, but all work. It is the center of the seven chakra system. It's the bridge that gaps the lower chakras to the higher ones. It is the balance point for your energetic center. I recently found out that the amount of energy that is produced by the heart is multiple times greater than the amount of energy produced by the brain. There's quite literally a measurable electromagnetic field that comes from the heart. Science is starting to catch up with this metaphysical idea that the heart creates this beautiful toroidal field around you. And we're starting to see evidence of that because science is becoming more refined. They're being able to find subtle things. And so before I go into too much more detail about that, I am Ryan, the co-owner of Guided by the Omens with my beautiful wife, Nicole.
And I'm Nicole Oman. And so I'm a life coach and a healer. I also do tarot readings, which I have just opened up again. So if you guys need some support, me and Mimi are here to give you those readings for the beginning of the year. And I just want to warn you today that, I am in a very Kali place. And so I am going to probably be demonstrating the heart chakra in a form that is more of this very honest kind of tough mother love kind of energy. And what I think is funny with the heart chakra is we all think of this love as like, love is kind, love is patient, but love is honest. And love is strong, and love kind of has to be that thing that says no sometimes, or kind of lights the fire under our butts when we feel like just hiding under the covers. So you might get a very interesting Nikki today, but we'll see what kind of pops through.
Well, let's begin with the meditation that Ryan has led us through every week, helping us connect to the chakra of the day.
Thank you. Yeah, the heart chakra is one of my favorite places to connect to energetically because of the balanced aspect of it. I think a lot of people think of the heart chakra for purposes of love, and rightfully so, but it's also a balance point. And I think being balanced and centered is really the key to life, because if you can be balanced and centered, it really doesn't matter what's happening outside of you, because you are balanced and centered within. And that is the reason why the heart chakra is named Anahata, which means unstruck, which basically means that if you're truly centered and you're truly in your heart, then you're impervious. You're impervious to life's constant battles and chaos and all the things that it throws at you. So with the advent of the holidays and all the wonderful stuff that's happening right now and the economy and all that stuff, there's no better time to get heart centered, because that's the best place to hide when things get a little rough outside. Hide in your heart. And so I'm going to draw everybody's energy into the heart right now. So first and foremost, find yourself in a position where you can sit comfortably, but sit up nice and tall. Remember, your spine is like a spiritual or subtle energetic antenna. So you want to make sure that it is well placed to receive the energy and let the energy flow. Close your eyes, close your mouth, start to breathe through your nose. Feel the air moving through your nostrils. Feel the air move into your throat. Feel the air move into your lungs. Feel the air move into your belly. Feel the air drop into your hips. Feel the air drop all the way into your base. Now let the air gently float up back into the heart area. Feel your chest expand with your inhale. Feel all that beautiful prana flowing through your body with the exhale. Now imagine a small sphere of green light right in the center of your chest. It may come up as green, sometimes it comes up as pink, sometimes gold, sometimes a combination of the three. Just pick the color that resonates with you. And allow your consciousness to drift into that orb. With each inhale, we're going to draw the energy in. With each exhale, we're going to inflate this orb, increasing its size. To the size of a golf ball. To the size of a softball. To the size of a basketball. To the size of a beach ball. To the size of your entire body. You are now fully encapsulated in this beautiful golden, pink, and green light, this orb of protection. And within this space, you are unstruck. You are impervious to the world's chaos, and you are ready to receive whatever your heart is open to receive. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes and come back to this space and time.
All right, that felt great. Thank you.
Yeah. The heart chakra is just a great place to hang out.
Great. I'm like, I don't want to come back. Can I just stay there through this broadcast and let you guys take this over? So I've been thinking about how to lead into the heart chakra, and I just want to. One of the key words that kept coming to me when you were bringing us through this was the word grace. And I feel like whether you're coming from a space of Kali or whether you're coming from a more lighthearted space, I think that's a word that can connect to the heart chakra so well is the energy of grace. You use balance, but just to take it a step further, it's like grace, to be in a space of grace, no matter what's happening. So that was just what was coming through when I was feeding into that heart chakra energy. And as I look at 2023, the year ahead, as I've been doing these readings, I think grace will support us through several of our planetary shifts this year. That being said, I know, Ryan, you wanted to talk about the different forms of love. So do you want to lead us off with the forms of love?
Yeah, absolutely. But before I do, I want to touch on that grace thing. Nikki and I talk a lot about leaving space for grace. And I think that's, basically just leaving the back door open so that God can sneak in and bring you gifts. Because I think we have a tendency as humans, because we focus so much on our intellect, we have a tendency to want to try to figure everything out. We want to try to check off all the boxes, and we want to try to make sure that everything is in order, especially masculine energy. we tend to really want everything to be organized in a way. Well, the unfortunate thing with that is if you organize everything in such a way that you think your intellect has got it figured out, that you're not leaving that space open for surprises, for gifts, for divine intervention. And I think that's super important, is to leave that back door open, leave a little crack in your logical perception of the world, so that God can come in and surprise you and give you gifts and take care of you. And that's a balancing act in and of itself, because sometimes when we get in a really bad spot, we lean on grace a lot and forget to take care of ourselves in a very practical way. But then we can do the other side, and we can be very practical and try to take care of everything and have all our ducks in a row, and then forget that there's a divine order to things, and that things don't always make sense, and things don't always, end up in a linear progression. And I feel like life is a lot of this oscillating back and forth between, leaning on your intellect and trying to plan, and then leaning on grace and trying to allow. And that's a balancing act that the heart chakra is a big part of. And then when we talk about the aspects of love,
I wanted to.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Forgot that I had sent this. So I sent one of my friends and I have had an interesting year. And we've both struggled with dissatisfaction in certain areas of our life. And I saw this quote earlier this week. I love the gene keys. If you've studied the gene keys at all, I don't care which gene key it is, like dig in. There's so many nuggets of gold within the gene keys. So one of the gene keys for this week, a quote from it was, "Dissatisfaction is truly divine and contains the secret of grace." And so I think that kind of puts in what you were just saying. Like when we are finding ourselves out of balance or dissatisfied or whatever, that's where we can call in. That's where we can find this balance. That's where we can find that grace within our heart energy. And I also sent her a quote, one of my favorite Rumi quotes. I had made a meme of it when my father passed away and I was struggling. And this is the quote that came to me. And it says, "The light changes. I need more grace than I thought." And so when my phone's happy about this. When you're struggling with things, to call in that energy for support. That was my strength. Like that, remembering that quote, like I need more grace than I thought. I was, when my father passed away, I was struggling with my mom and her pain and everything. And that's what I need more grace than I thought. Basically, like I need more enlightenment than I thought I had at this point. Like pull in the grace. And it was that pulled me through that. And any other challenging situation, it's always been that grace that's able to get me through the eye of the needle.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. There's no better thing than the grace. It's just so hard because there's these practical aspects of life, which, we have to take responsibility for those aspects too. And that's the first aspect of love that Nikki and I have been able to kind of correlate to the 7 chakra system, the Greek aspects of love, because Greeks used a lot of different words for love, kind of like the Eskimos have a lot of words for snow, because it's not just one size fits all type of a thing. And I think in Western society, we use the word love so ubiquitous that we forget that there's nuances to it. There's compartments, there's different territories, if you will, within love. And the first one connected to the root chakra is a term called pragma. And in Greek, pragma basically means practicality. It means commitment. It means, showing up and doing the work. And I think that a lot of times, and this goes back to the grace conversation, if there's an imbalance, we tend to want to either go fully into practicality and be like, you know what, grace isn't doing it for me, so I got to drop all that woo-woo nonsense and just put my head down and work really hard and get things done. And then on the other side of it, it's like, you're like, well, you know what, I don't really need to worry about those worldly things because I'm connected to grace, and grace will take care of everything for me. And again, it goes back to balance. Learning how to find, okay, where do I show up and do my work practically with commitment? Yeah. Which card is that?
Harmony.
Card, but I always think this is like that ideal balance between the mind and the heart.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, and that's a lot of what we talk about in the journey of ascension, is this kind of connection of the two chakras, and that card displays very distinctly the connection with the heart and the third eye, and that connection there is really interesting. But the root and the heart connect with this practical love, this concept of like, hey, we got to buckle down and show up and do stuff, and then always leaving that space for grace to sneak in the back door.
Well, and one of the things that also with the heart chakra, that what I correlate with the heart chakra is the aspects of the Ho'oponopono and the I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you, I love you. And the first step, I always say, the first step of healing, the first step of anything is the I'm sorry. And the I'm sorry translates to taking self-responsibility. This doesn't necessarily mean you need to take fault per se on anything that is transpiring or whatnot, but you have to see your role in it. And so I think that we get our power back is when we start to see where we're showing up or where we're not showing up, what we're avoiding, and really taking, or where we're overcompensating. Because what might happen is you might be doing too much and you're needing other people to kind of step in or help or whatever that might be. So it doesn't matter what it is. It's like, where are you showing up? Let's take self-responsibility for the you are here, where we are, whether, no matter what the reason is, and what you can actually do about it. And I think that's what really huge in pragma is, it's kind of like one of those things of, I think a good analogy, and we use this a lot, is like the old school idea of arranged marriages, right? So sometimes we don't get to choose that commitment love, but where can we show up? Right. Where can, maybe you don't feel like you consciously chose where you're at, chose the lifestyle, the class system, your body, your physical look, whatever that might be. But what can you do about it that you have it? Right. It's like accepting the unacceptable. Mm-hmm. Where can we accept the unacceptable? And that is a really painful lesson sometimes, because, but avoiding what really is going on can also cause you prolonged amounts of suffering. So it's really committing to your reality, whether it's showing up like sunshine, rainbows, and there's gold, like you're Scrooge McDuck jumping into a pot of gold, or there's depletion. Yeah. Where are you? And accepting that. Yeah. And sitting with no judgment and neutrality and going, this is where I'm at. Yes. This is where I'm at. And I commit to showing up for where I'm at, good, bad, ugly, or in between. And that is a form of love. Absolutely. And, we want love to just show up and shower us with rainbows and the pot of gold. But which it does at times. It does at times. It does. The pragma is when you're done with the honeymoon phase. Pragma is what's left over after all of the warm glow of we've just met and we just got to know each other goes away, and you start to see each other's flaws. Nikki and I jokingly say you never really know somebody until you see their ass. And that doesn't get more root chakra than that. You know what I mean? Once you see somebody's flaws, you see the truth itself, right? Because we all have them. And to try to hide them is natural because you want to put your best foot forward, especially when you first meet somebody. But when you get to know somebody more, you move in with somebody, you start living in a relationship for a longer period of time, all of those wonderful niceties start to fade away. You see their bad habits. Yeah, you see how your bad habits complement and not complement their bad habits. Yeah. And if you don't have pragma, then that's when you turn tail and run. Yeah. If you don't have that committed love, when things get tough, you leave and try to find the next perfect thing. And it's always going to be better when you haven't seen the person's ass. Then we could turn tail and run around and look for another person that's going to fill that void. But at the same time, you're going to end up, no matter where you go, there you are. You're going to end up getting something that's still going to trigger you in a certain way, because just because they trigger you in one way, somebody else is going to trigger you in the other wound. It's like we have to deal with what it is, and it's those old vows of like there's sickness and health through all of those things. It's like, can you really show up, and not just for another person? Can you show up for yourself when you're feeling your worst? Can you show up feeling, can you show up for yourself when you're feeling your best? Sure, that's when sometimes people don't show up when they're in their best because they're content. Sometimes we have to be painted into a corner because we have to grow up and move through something. And so we can play victim to that, because the other end of taking responsibility is victimhood, of somebody not taking responsibility and blaming everyone else for where they put themselves. Well, the only reason why you're in where you are is because there are decisions that we have made in our lives, and I have to do this. I'm talking to myself, guys. So there is decisions that I decided to make that put me here, good, bad, or ugly, or in between, where I thought I felt guided or right, or inspired to do so.
Oh, and sometimes
it doesn't turn out the way you thought it was going to.
And sometimes you get put in positions where you have to show up with pragma. And it wasn't anything that you did. Like Mimi, you have a perfect example of that with what happened with Joe, right?
Right. Yeah. My partner, for anybody who doesn't know, got into a awful car accident earlier this year, and it's been a huge process for both of us going through that. And that's what I was gonna say is, like, there can be those spiritual teachings that are like, oh, bad things are happening to you, you've done something bad. No, life happens, good or bad. I always love that Rumi quote, like, beyond right doing and wrongdoing, there's a field and I'll meet you there. And, so often we get in, oh, I've done bad, so here's the bad. I've done good, here's the good. And we have that idea of karma. And I just think karma is like, it's your lessons, and sometimes going through, like you guys said, in relationship, going through those heat points, it's part of an expansion of love, ultimately, to be able to hold that love, even as you're frustrated with somebody who's injured, can't walk, all of that, that was challenging. And it was part of my lessons, and it had to Grinch me. I went through the Grinch process, right? Of my heart growing 3 sizes. Like, I had Grinch process, and I was like, I don't want to have to do this for you. And like, I love you. Okay, here it is. Like, and it is I remember at one point, because he was using pee bottles, which for some reason in Mimi world, that was the worst, pee bottles. And in the scheme of things, like, he's alive. Pee bottles are not a bad thing, but dumping his pee bottles made my little Grinch heart very sad. And I was a Grinch about it at times. And then, had to be able to move, grow, love, provide myself and him grace to move through that situation.
And every parent's like, yep. Because diapers and screaming and gas bubbles and being up and sleep deprived, like that is the process. I think a lot of people, I always say this with marriage or children or relationships or whatever. It's like we romanticize these things, then we have it and we're like, oh, marriage is this.
Well, yeah, and romance needs to be there, because you wouldn't commit to the hard shit if you didn't feel something for that person to begin with, right? So you have to have that initial spark, otherwise you're not going to commit to this stuff. And to be perfectly honest with you, we could sit here and talk about pragma all day long. This whole thing could be about pragma, but I would like to touch into some of the other aspects. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of guide us through the spiral into the heart. So instead of going from root to sacral, I'm just going to go straight up to the crown. And that aspect of love is very different. That aspect of love is the unconditional love
grace
of agape.
Yeah.
And this is, yes, to us, this is very much grace. Agape is this unconditional God love, this, like you just said, Mimi, this, there's these two extremes of life and the field in the middle that let's meet there. And God or divinity doesn't judge. It just observes, and it takes it all in, and it loves everything just the way that it is. There's no way of doing it right or doing it wrong. If you are Hitler, God loves you for being the best Hitler you can be. And if you are Mother Teresa, God loves you for being the best Mother Teresa you can be. It's just
that's
like
a hard pill to
accepting
swallow.
you. Yeah.
I feel people be like, whoa.
It's a very non-dual way of looking at the world. If you get up into the crown chakra, that's everything. It encompasses everything in the world. And if you truly believe that God is in everything, that's everything. That's fecal matter, that's murder, that's all the nasty things in the world. God looks at all those things and goes, yep, I made that too. And I love it all. And until you can come to that level of acceptance, you're not really connecting to agape. Agape is an acceptance of everything exactly how it is, no conditions. There are no conditions in agape, because agape is everything, and everything is love. Even the dark stuff, even the scary stuff, even the stuff that makes you feel horrible is still God.
And that is going to be
I thought you were bringing the Kali energy.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's a really deep teaching. It's the deepest kind of tantric teaching that you can actually get to. It's something that when you're 100% in your practice, it's still extremely hard to get there in the body, in the physical body. It's easy to get there when you're like floating above, but really going through those things and experiencing loss and experiencing being the person who has experienced like devastation or trauma or things like that. We think of those things as something that needs to be fixed or healed or changed or whatever, right? But if you're looking at things in a way of like, okay, and we're all kind of affecting each other. And if life is about evolution of the soul, we have to go to the depths of the darkness, or when is the time that we all have learned the most in our life? Rock bottom. Mm-hmm. Everybody's hurt. We all learn and grow fast in rock bottom.
If you really think about it, you think back to the past, the things that stand out to you as the most pivotal moments in your life are usually the most challenging moments.
And it's when we have to go through the darkness in such a tight pressure cooker kind of way.
Eye of the needle.
And the eye of the needle. And when we go through that, it's because the soul has to evolve on a learning curve that's like this, instead of this slow burn process. But when you look at those years that you had a lot of death, a lot of loss, a lot of challenge and struggle, they last for a certain amount of time, but it pushes you and it drives you forward. And what I think God is looking for is not a certain state of your life being perfectly happy. And because if you've ever met people who didn't go through anything and the silver spoon's been in their mouth, they lack compassion. They lack depth. They lack empathy.
Patience.
They have entitlement and self-importance. And those things can be, as if you've ever dealt with people who are very much in that energy, they lack love.
Well, it's the princess and the pea syndrome. When you are so comfortable and so safe that you don't deal with discomfort and you don't have any lack of safety, any little teeny tiny bit of discomfort throws you off your game. And so that's when the other side of grace comes in and goes, we need to strengthen that a little bit. We need to make you a little uncomfortable. We need to have you deal with discomfort so that you can remember to be grateful for what you have.
Well, I also see this grace in the darkness. It's something I had to learn in my daughter's age. My daughter's 11 years old. And me and my mom were in a really dark place in our life. And my mom was in a relationship with my father, and we were dealing with domestic violence. Like all the time. It was getting worse and worse and worse. And my mom wasn't leaving. And she had this story that she couldn't leave my father as long as my grandmother was alive because she was scared that he was going to go after her. So at the age of 11, we were coming home from my family's house. My mom and my grandmother were in a car ahead of us, and me and my dad were in my uncle's car following behind them. And my mom got into a head-on collision, and it almost severed her foot, and my grandmother ended up passing. And I witnessed it at the age of 11, and so did my father. When she passed, this is like the ultimate grace in darkness. When she passed, I was already a really connected child, but she started speaking to me. So you guys know that I speak pretty clearly with my inner guidance system and to the other side. Well, this is when it really started opening, and she started telling me things that were controversial. She told me that she chose to go. She told me that my life was going to change and that my mom was going to leave my father. So through all this, I could hear her speaking very loudly to me. And throughout the next 10 years, I could still continue. She's like, yeah, no, like this was choice. This was grace. My death was grace. And it was, because we did leave. And life got safer. Life got better. I was going to be turning into a teenager soon. And if I was in the house with my father becoming a teenager, the violence would have turned on me. And so sometimes we can't see through the darkness. We can't see why that horrible thing happened to us.
Yeah.
But if you rely on that grace, that higher perspective, that connection to source, you start to see that there are graceful moments in sacrifice, that there's graceful moments in loss.
There's very much that Footprints poem about walking on the I gotta start crying just thinking about it. The one where you're Jesus and you were walking on the beach and you're like, oh, look, there's Jesus's footprints and there's my footprints. Yay. Hey, wait a second. There's that part of the beach. That was a part of my life that was really, really hard. And I only see one set of footprints. What the heck was going on there? Did you leave me? He's like, no, I was carrying you.
And those are our humble times. Those are the humble moments where we have to learn God in a different way.
Yep.
And
why do I cry in every one of these videos, for God's sake?
Because this work is real.
There's no crying in heart chakra.
That's the only thing.
There's a lot of crying in heart chakra.
So, knowing that like there is grace in your life, even though you're going through a dark time, right? I think there's a lot of times too that we think things are really, really dark. And then all of a sudden you hear someone's story and goes, and I've been doing this lately this year. It was like, there's all this, like, we're going through the really hard times this year as well. And then I hear somebody's story and I go, I'll take my problems. Okay, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good practice, is that when you start to really feel bad about yourself and what's going on in your life and the difficulties you're going through, is literally a meditative practice where you close your eyes and you think about the people in the world who are truly suffering. People who are starving, people who don't have a place to live, people who are dealing with terminal disease. Like those people, those problems could be your problems. So it gives you perspective. And I think that's the real truth of agape, is perspective, right? Because we just watched this whole thing on Richard Branson going into space. And the perspective that you get when you're in outer space of the planet is so like different than when you're in it, right? You're in it and you're just fighting to survive and you're fighting to thrive and you're fighting to be happy. And when you rise above it and you look down and you just go, it just all is. You look at the planet and you look at a storm from space and it just looks like a beautiful swirl of clouds, whereas everybody in that storm is struggling to survive.
I think storms are beautiful.
Well, we just got a huge one here in Colorado. We didn't even know it was coming. Suddenly, boom. We just got like a foot of snow yesterday. It was a whole mess. But anyways, again.
Well, a year ago today was the fires.
Yeah. Well, we could spend another another whole thing on talking about agape.
Yeah, we gotta go.
We've covered that. So we're going to spiral back down to the sacral chakra, and we're going to get into something that's very different, and that is eros. Eros or eros is
romantic,
sexy love. It's the love that compels us to reproduce. Very, very, very clearly goes, okay, we are going to take male and female, we're going to put them together, and we're going to make something.
Or female, or male, or whatever. It's like,
yeah, no, absolutely. But it's this creative energy, right? We're going to put these two, and I should say masculine, feminine, right? You're taking masculine, feminine, you're taking positive and negative, and you're putting them together. It's like attraction. This a magnet is a very perfect example. Like every magnet has a north and a south pole. If you've ever been, we've all been kids playing with magnets, right? You take a magnet and you take the north pole from one and the south pole from the other, and you put them close to each other, and boom, they pull together, right? Magnetism, very, very much eros, right? What happens when you turn the poles around and you go positive to positive? It doesn't go together, right? There's this energetic resistance of like not attracting like, but like repelling like, and the opposites attract, right? And a magnet represents that, and so does sexual energy. Sexual energy represents this positive negative. Even in same-sex relationships, somebody's going to take on a more masculine character and the other one's going to take on a more feminine character.
Those can flip.
Yeah, and you may flip-flop.
And we flip.
We flip-flop with that a lot. And that's, part of the beauty of our relationship. It's also part of the frustration of our relationship. I think that a lot of times, because we've been socially conditioned to believe that the male is the masculine who has to do, create, and provide, right? And then the feminine is the receptive and takes care of the family and is more domestic, blah. That's not the truth for us. I actually tend to be a little bit better at taking care of the home than Nikki. And Nikki tends to be a little bit better at manifesting abundance and bringing in more of that provider energy. And that's a really hard pill to swallow, because part of Nikki wants to just let me be the provider. And just, I go out and fix it and I figure it out, right? And a part of me wants to do that. That masculine part of me that's just like, yeah, I got to be a guy and a man and go out there and kill something and bring it home. And that's just not what we have cultivated in our relationship. We've had to fight really hard to understand each other's differences in this category. And it's still a work in progress, because we're still struggling with that. But
how do you deal with eros? How are you experiencing eros, Meme?
That's a question. Yeah, it's very interesting, because Joe and I also have a very interesting balance. Like, I've been, heading up Gaia Blooming for years, right? And Joe has struggled through various health and physical disabilities the last few years. So I have been the provider. I have been the go out and hunt my lettuce person. I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not going to kill, but I'll go hunt my lettuce.
Decapitating lettuce.
I've been decapitating lettuce, shooing away the chipmunks, right? And when it comes to eros, I do prefer Joe to take that masculine energy, but it's hard for him, because Joe, prior to us being together, was a good provider, right? Like, for himself, right? He had a job and he was making good money, and he's gone through like a intense dark night of the soul experience. He's been in his suffering, finding grace, right? So it can be hard for him to show up in that masculine role when it comes to eros, because the world is saying, like, you're not behaving like a man in this. And so he's had a lot of worth stuff going on in that through our time together.
Well, I'll say, from the masculine perspective, it's a little bit of a mind fuck, because there was a time period. I grew up in the 80s, and in the 80s, for the most part, men were men. Men did the men thing and women did the women thing. Over the past 30 years, those lines have been very blurred. What is masculine? What is feminine? It's very difficult to say these days. And we're still trying to figure that out. And I think the reason for that is because we're trying to find that sweet spot in the middle, that Ardhana Ishvara energy, that Shoshumna, where the masculine and the feminine unite in one. But in that in that process, we're losing our identities. We're losing the very clear masculine and feminine roles that were very comfortable for a lot of people. And when in the process, you are gaining things, you're gaining nuance, you're gaining subtlety, you're gaining compassion and empathy, but you're also losing these safe containers of roles where we can just fall neatly into one container and know what our role is and know what our responsibility is and be able to do that and show up, right? That's falling away from us. And I think that the masculine in particular is having a really hard time with that. I can say for myself, let's not say the masculine, let's say Ryan. Ryan is having a really hard time finding his balance between being overtly masculine and yet still embracing his feminine side and trying to find that balance in the middle. It's a tricky, delicate procedure, and it involves a lot of deconditioning and a lot of reconditioning, because once you've deconditioned certain aspects, you have to recondition what works for you now.
I also think that there is a change in what we think masculine and feminine energies are. Exactly. I think there was this hyper masculine thing that was happening from the Kali Yuga and allowing like this like dominance of the masculine to be there. So there's this weird thing of having to redefine what the masculine is and what its role really is. It's not there to be the overlord, but like, how does it work in harmony? And then women have to reassess what that is, because we have something, and this might trigger some people, so I'm sorry, but I'm going there because Kali Ma Chakra Day. So women go into this idea of feminism, but there's nothing feminine about feminism. Sorry, it's just not. It's the feminine trying to be more masculine and demanding and like this is being feminine. If you look at it biologically, what we're supposed to be here, not supposed to be here, but one of our main assets is we are a portal of life. We are here to express motherhood and love and compassion and all of these things. Shakti. To Shakti. And Shakti is not necessarily soft. Shakti is life force energy, you know. This is vibrant, and it is, but it's not masculine. It's not masculine. It's creative and creation, and it's
you want to know Shakti? Look at Mother Earth. Mother Earth is the embodiment of Shakti. Look at a volcano. Yes. Look at a hurricane. Look at a tornado. Look at the power of Shakti. There is nothing greater on this planet than that power.
But it's not masculine. It's still feminine. And I've been hearing a lot of things in some spiritual communities of like, I love, oh God, this is not how. Okay. But this is one of my pet peeves is these men, these spiritual men that are like, I can teach a woman how to be a woman. And I'm like, oh. Yeah? How's that going for you? How long have you been in your relationship? Oh, you don't have one. No wonder. Because a woman has to get it from herself. She's got to empower herself from within. And we're talking a lot about right now in the spiritual community is the divine feminine rising. And the divine feminine rising isn't necessarily like the sweet demure, like mama's just got to take care of just having the baby on her breast and that's where it is. And it's also not like the mother just going into the workforce and being a man and putting on the power suit. It's this divine, unapologetic, destructive and constructive energy that a woman has. She can destroy something like Kali Ma because it no longer serves. But then yet here we go with the fires. We watched the fires devastate our entire town.
A year ago today. Right now, actually. Right now.
And we were sitting on the hill and we watched over 1,000 houses just go in flames. And you know what's really interesting? When we got back from that, we got back into our home, and by the time we were gone for a week, the sproutlings already started to poking through the soot of the black. You see these beautiful shoots of green already starting to come up. And you know what's not coming up? Those houses, they're stuck in bureaucracy and all this other political bullshit that none of these houses are getting rebuilt. But nature's coming back healthy. She's happy. Mama's like, all right, I got nutrients. And so when we learn what the masculine and the feminine really is, the feminine is not demure. The masculine doesn't have to be suppressive. That's when I think we really start to learn what the divine, this divine Shakti Shiva learning together is. And we have to learn those essences within ourselves and like really unravel what we've been told what a man and a woman should be. And I think that's what's happening. And I think that's why we're also
oh, it's definitely happening. We are, I mean, if you look over our shoulder here, that's our Ardhanarishvara. Ardhanarishvara quite literally is an androgynous figure, the unity of masculine and feminine. So most people are familiar with Yab Yum. Yab Yum is this, it looks like somebody meditating but having sex at the same time. There's a masculine figure and he's in a meditation pose and the feminine figure sitting in his lap and they're copulating, but they're doing it in a very conscious meditative state. And I think that is the example of Eros in its highest level, is that you take the masculine energy of Shiva and the feminine energy of Shakti and you unite the two to create. The two become one. Masculine Shakti or Shiva energy is the energy of ideas, logic, thoughts, consciousness, and Shakti is just massive energy of manifestation, creation, life,
fertility, and
you put those two together, and that's Eros. The coming together of Shiva and Shakti is Eros, and that is the powerful energy that creates this Kundalini awakening. When that comes together, this is the reason why Tantra is so wrapped up in sex, because there's so much energy in sex. Your body is taking all the prana and pushing it into your reproductive organs to create life. When you want to have a Kundalini awakening, or when you're attempting to do that, you take that same energy that's being pressed into your reproductive system and you pull it up. You draw that energy up through the rest of the chakras, through the subtle energy body, up into the crown, and everything just opens up. Because there's so much energy in this area that if it's reallocated to consciousness, to divinity, then it's a powerful conduit to that energy. But then it also has to freely be able to travel up and down like a freeway so that it can take this divine inspiration and manifest it into reality.
Beautiful. I was like, we're sacral chakra again.
Right?
Last week's.
So spiraling in, we're doing this spiral thing. We started at the root, we went up to the crown, then we went back down to the sacral. Now we're coming up to the third eye. This is a very interesting aspect of love. This is called ludus, or ludus, Ludus, and it is the idea of projection, basically, this fantasy love. And this is very much, when I think of ludus, I think of unrequited love. When you see somebody from a distance and they're absolutely perfect, there is nothing wrong with that person, and you want to dedicate all of your being to get closer to them, to unite with them, to be one with them, because you've projected everything you think love can be onto that particular person
or thing.
And it is not the truth, but it is something that can compel you towards the truth.
Well, and I want to say this. I think this is where I have a very big difficulty when I teach love, because a lot of where we're stuck in Western society is ludus and eros, right? So I always see how these connect. I see how the crown and the root connect, and these two connect, and these two connect, and then the heart is kind of the bullseye right in the center. But I see that a lot of people get caught in ludus and eros. I see this. I want to consummate this relationship through sex, and then you start having these karmic lessons of looping in these two energies, and then you start going, like Ryan said, then you have to start seeing their ass, and then you have to go, oh, I'm out, or oh, this is what love really is, right? That we have to deal with each other. I get caught in the past. I got caught.
You got, Mimi?
Yes, that's so ludus.
Yeah, the dream, imagination, daydreaming. Yeah,
and it's beautiful. And this is also
Romeo and Juliet.
I also say it's a trap a little bit.
The Admiral Akbar
but not fully, because here's the thing. This is the old adage. You can't fall in love with potential, right? But if you don't fall in love with a certain aspect of potential, you would probably never get into a relationship.
And a lot of people do that. There's a lot of people who they see the other side of Ludos, and they look past the projection into the reality, but they look so far past it, they let go of the romanticism, and then they decide not to even try.
They isolate.
Yeah, they shelter themselves. They get a bunch of cats, and
oh my God.
And they project all their love onto their cats. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is that they
or dogs
shut down because they don't have enough Ludos, right? The fantasy to them does seem like so much of a trap that they're not willing to even try. And so just like all the other chakras, there's a balancing act here. If you fall too far into the fantasy realm, then you just go from relationship to relationship to relationship without actually solidifying something and learning the other lessons of love that we've been talking about. But if you don't have at least a little bit of Ludos, a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of excitement, a little bit of chemistry, you're never going to even try. You're going to sit there and become a spinster or recluse, and you're going to allow life to just pass you by because you don't want to take any risks.
Or a playboy. And the thing is with this, because I've gotten stuck in it, and it can be enticing. It's like I keep seeing that the anglerfish in the darkness, right?
Yep.
And it's like, oh, look at the pretty light, and it's like, ha!
Yep.
But still, we need that light in the darkness to get us out of, because I've seen so many people that don't have the light of hope or the light of potentialities, or even seeing their potentialities, their light of themselves. And so then you just get stuck in depression and sadness.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have the Ludos, if you don't have the flirtiness, the fun, the possibility, the joy of that interaction, then we're kind of dead in the water too.
We think of our sex organs as the things between our legs, but the biggest sex organ in the body is the brain. Because if you're excited here, that will follow suit, no problem. But if you're not excited here, that ain't going anywhere. And we've all been there. We've all been in a situation where we're like, the body wants to do something, but the mind is like, I'm just not there. I'm not there. And that is something that connects those two, right? That sacral sexual energy with this fantasy energy. I mean, there's a reason why people dress up when they're with their partner, right? There's a reason
or when they're looking for a partner.
Yeah, when they do role play, right? There's a reason why role playing exists. There's a reason why there's all sorts of fantasies wrapped around sex, because this is a bigger sex organ, and this controls so much. If you can get excited here, it will pour into the other aspects, and it's crucial to have that. But at the same time, it's crucial to remember that you can get caught up in it. You can get a little lost there. And so just like everything else, it's all about balance and trying to find that sweet spot in the middle.
I want to bring it to, I mean, what I'm hearing as well is like, it's kind of like law of attraction, like people who want to attract their partner, this is a piece. A lot of people want to like poo-poo law of attraction. No, it's an important piece. It's just not the end all be all. This is part of why I love the journey of the chakras, because truly we want to bring all of these pieces together. But that envisioning, that idea, that inspiration, it's a very important piece to the whole process. So I love digging into the Ludos energy. And it can help pull us forward. And I will say, astrologically, to me, this is Aquarius energy. When we're like tuning into the vibrations and aligning ourselves with the vibrations, that is powerful. And we're going to discover how powerful it is over the next, 18 years or so. So 14 years, 18 years.
Is that how long Pluto's going to be there?
Pluto takes a while. I think it's closer to like 14, 15 years, but in my head, it's always 18 years. But
well, it depends. I saw that
on sign.
yeah, like Capricorn, it was like 20 years. And then like certain ones, I don't remember, but I was looking at it and I was like, because how long is this going to last? Right. Uh,
Many years, many years.
Another generational period of time. But yes, and I love that you brought in the law of attraction, because the law of attraction is Ludos, and doing a vision board is Ludos.
Totally.
It's like
Totally.
you put all those things on, this is what I want, right?
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, that's what you want. Can you show up for that too? I mean, that's why you need to balance all of these aspects of love, or your aka your chakras as well, because you have to envision it, but then you have to show up for what that is.
Yeah. It's
And
the
so,
first step in a very long process. I think that the law of attraction can be misleading in the sense that that's all you need to do.
Yeah, right.
All you
Yes.
need to do is envision something and it's done. Done.
Right.
And that's like, no, that's the first
fun.
step. That's the first step. Now you have to put that into practical reality. And you do that by showing up every single day, because the universe, when you put something on your vision board, when you have a law of attraction, the universe is going to ask you every single day, if not every single hour, if not every single moment, are you sure you still want this?
yeah, I think we're
Are
going
you
through
sure
it.
you still want
I think
this?
we're going through that.
Oh, no doubt. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And what you do, that pragma that we talked about in the root chakra, is what demonstrates to the universe, yes, I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure. Because you keep showing up. And if you keep showing up, you can manifest anything. But it does start with Ludos. It starts with an idea. It starts with a vision. It starts with a fantasy. It starts with inspiration. But that is only the first.
Getting excited with your about something. And speaking of what we were saying too, I've had a lot of clients that I've talked about, like writing down, like, what do you want in a partner? Like, write that down. And I say, and you may not get everything, and it may not just be perfect, or you may get those things and decide like this isn't it. But that goes back to seeing the butt, and it's okay. Like, everybody has to want the butt, like, because you have a butt too. So so it's good. It's good to see their butt so that you can show your butt.
And then we're back to arrows.
There we go.
Sweet. I mean, I understand that too. And we're going to move into the next one. But I just want to say, like, I know this personally. When Ryan and I, before we got married, we broke up. And it's because we thought that the grass is greener. Everybody gets a grass is greener syndrome at some point, right? And
especially in Los Angeles.
Yeah. And I went to India, and I had a relationship with a guy at the ashram. And on paper, it was like, oh yeah, these are all the things that I was missing from my relationship with him. But it was even less fulfilling than my relationship with him. And I was like, okay, shit. Maybe the grass isn't greener. Maybe I have to cultivate that in my relationship instead of looking somewhere else.
And sometimes that green grass is astroturf.
Oh yeah, I learned that the hard way too. Maybe knows all about that. I'm literally astroturf. Where it's plastic. And you can't grow anything in plastic.
But it looks good, and it's low maintenance.
No, I don't think it's low maintenance.
Oh, not this grass.
We are totally in a digression.
All right, before we digress further,
let's go into this.
Let's roll around here.
Speaking of,
to the solar plexus and start talking about this next aspect of love, which is very, very difficult for me personally. I know a lot of people have trouble with this. It's something called Phila Yutia. Phila Yutia means self-love. This is where you embody self-love. And man, this is one of those areas, and I've done a little bit of research on this. I'm not by any means a historian, but I'm kind of like an expert generalist. I know a little bit about everything. And one of the things that I learned about Greek culture is that they warned people about this particular energy, this philia, this self-love, because it, just like just like Ludos, it can be a bit of a trap, because you can fall into becoming a narcissist, right? That gets that energy of like, I love myself so much that I lose perspective of the entire world because I am the sun. I am sustaining all things through myself, and I don't need anybody because I'm amazing and I can't imagine life without me.
But so I want to talk about the other side of the trap, because I think a lot of the people here talking or listening and really like doing this work, we end up having a tendency of being on the other side of the narcissist. And I call it the reverse narcissist or the inverted narcissist.
You could call it the victim too.
It could be the victim.
Right. Self-deprecation.
Yes. So it's this thing where we don't have enough self-love. So we give our love to everyone else. It could be the caretaker syndrome. And we give our love to everyone else and we don't take care of ourselves.
Yeah. Or a pity party. This was my problem with the solar plexus. I always fell into pity party mode where it was like everything's about me, but in a negative sense.
That's definitely the reverse narcissist. Mm-hmm. And the other part of that, and women have a tendency to go into this thing where we people please. And we go into people pleasing behaviors and we don't end up trying to please the self. And that's a really funky balance, right? So self-esteem is a huge thing in our culture, in our society. Self-worth, self-esteem. And
also in this era, right? You brought up the Kali Yuga. So we're coming out of the Kali Yuga right now, moving in the Dwapara Yuga. And the Dwapara Yuga is about the self. And I think that that's why we're seeing so many issues around the self,
and
where it's people are too much self or too little self, and trying to find that balance. And we got these, like, bringing up the Branson thing again, we've got these billionaires who are putting all of their resources into seeing who has the biggest rocket or penis-shaped rocket that they can fly into outer space. And
we're having a really hard time with resources on our own planet. And you're like, where the fuck are you going?
You guys, like, we've been to space and we all realized there was a bunch of rocks out there and a lot of empty space. And then maybe we should worry about kind of getting our stuff together down here first. But the ego is like, no, I must achieve. I must go out and put my stamp on the world and be the first to do something, because that's really important, to be the first.
I'm not coming.
Bezos didn't come to Branson's party because Bezos wanted to do it first.
We still, yeah. So I mean, with the self-love aspect, and what you'll see with self-worth or self-esteem is you either overcompensate and you become arrogant and self-important and entitled, or you become the opposite, where you become self-sacrificing, self-deprecating, and you don't believe in yourself at all. And there's this really weird, very hard to find balance of actual confidence.
I'm getting the analogy visually. I'm getting the analogy of a fire, right? Because the solar plexus is fire. And if you've ever had a bonfire or done a fire in a fireplace, if you don't have enough fuel on the fire, it goes out, right? But if you add too much fuel, then the fire gets out of control. And so the way that you maintain a fire is through diligence, right? You are constantly feeding it just enough, whatever it needs. The fire starts to get a little low, you give it a little bit more fuel. The fire starts to get a little bit high, you let it burn itself out and wait for it to calm back down. Then when it gets low again, you add a little fuel. So it's really a maintenance that keeps the self-love going. If you find yourself aggrandizing yourself, then you add a little humility, right? You add a little water, you add a little coolness, you cool down, take it easy. You're not that important, right? But if you start to become self-deprecating, oh, woe is me, everybody hates me.
Now
then
you have
to add a little
log soaked in water, and you need a little, and if you ever try to light something that's soaked in water, you're going to need a lot more energy.
You get a lot of smoke. But the point being is it the right fuel? So the right affirmations, in this analogy, affirmations would be a really good fuel for the self. Using the right affirmations that encourage with humility. So you want to be encouraged, but you also want to have a certain sense of humility so that you can find your balance, so that you can keep your fire going, keep your fire thriving, but not have it overtake everything and burn away everybody around you. You want to provide warmth for people around you. You don't want to burn them. Yeah.
Well, this is huge. This is going to be huge for this year ahead, because we are going to have the nodes shifting, like I mentioned a few times, from Taurus and Scorpio into Aries and Libra. And the polarities of Aries and Libra, Aries is the I am and Libra is the we are. And the thing is like, loving yourself and knowing like who you are and all that, that's so important. And that's where the north node energy is going to be focusing. And yet with the north node, we want to use the south node. No one wants to be here alone. I don't think I wouldn't want to be here alone, right? Like relationships, connection is so important, and can feel so much in our lives, good or bad, I don't know, but like can feel so much in our lives. And so keeping that in mind, to stay in that balance, like, like, what is it? I have so many things going in my head right now, but um, there's somebody who I follow who says, yes, you are like the center of the universe. And so is everybody else. Like remembering that, like your energy, your light, it is so important. And it is no more important. Like my energy is no more important than Ryan's or Nikki's, like in this, or any of you who are actually watching. We, in order for this to be something, you watching is just as important as us showing up, right? And so keeping in mind, like this is all so beautiful and intertwined, and being able to like hold good perspective, to go back to that word perspective about this, is really important. And I think to also go back to what you were saying about the suffering, when we become kind of too big on ourselves, a lot of times the universe will be like, I can still drop you on your ass. Like,
no matter where you are, you can be a billionaire surrounded by people and money and all the security in the world, and you can still fall dead from a heart attack if that's what happens, right? And there's no way to safeguard yourself from your life.
Humanness.
Yeah, life happens. And I think that you brought up a really good point, and it keeps coming back to the balance thing. Is it like, how do you make sure that you are important, but you're not over important, right? How do you have self-care and self-love without losing the fact that you're part of a bigger picture, right? And that's the delicate balance of this particular energy, is like, you are so important, but so is everybody else. And you are unique and amazing, and so is everybody else. You are God. You are literally a manifestation of God. And so is everybody else. And like, what a crazy, I mean, we have it in our nomenclature. The word namaste quite literally means the God in me, I'm God, and I see you because you are God, right? And that is the epitome of self-love, is it recognition of you as a divinity, but also recognizing the divinity outside of yourself.
Also, this was a quote from this channeler, Bashar, this channel, and he would say, we are one. As an individual, we are one, and we are one, and we are all connected. So it becomes one of those things that, if that golden rule, take care of yourself and then take care of your neighbor. And then, yes, take care of, you do have, especially, it's tricky because if you're leaning towards the narcissistic, start helping people out and get over yourself, right? Like, sorry, but love you, but yeah. But if you're like over giving, take a step back and go take care of your body, take care of yourself, rest, rejuvenate. You don't have to deplete yourself to help others. Sometimes you have to take care of yourself, that oxygen mask over yourself, before you put it on anyone else. Yep. So you have to find where you are on the map, and decide, and really be honest with yourself of, oh, yeah. And the hardest one to do is the recovering narcissist, because somebody who has been self-depleting, that's really hard to take care of yourself. It is. But to a narcissist to admit that they're being self-important, that's kind of funny.
It's a long drop.
It's a fall from grace. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you just got to be honest with yourself.
Well, and you guys bringing up the idea of taking care of others is a perfect lead in to our next energy center, which is the throat chakra. And the aspect of love here is called philia. So we had phila eutia. This is philia, as in Philadelphia, as in brotherly love, as in taking care of your community. This is love for those around you. This is love for your community. This is love for all mankind. This was something that the Greeks were huge on. They were, I mean, to them, there was nothing more important than taking care of of the community. This is the reason why they developed democracy, because they realized that the community as a whole was more powerful and more important than one singular person, one singular entity, one singular aspect. So they put a lot of energy into this philia. And then when the United States was created, the first capital that we had wasn't in DC, it was in Philadelphia. That was our first capital. We started there. We created this country in Philadelphia. There's a reason why it's called Philadelphia, because we wanted to embody this brotherly love. That's also the reason why we started inviting people to come into this country. We wanted to create a melting pot. We wanted to bring people into this country and merge them into our culture and create something new, something magical, something amazing. That was during the Enlightenment era. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mimi, but I think astrologically, we're in a very similar time period, or similar astrological stuff that was happening 250 years ago when we were going through the Enlightenment era. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, yeah, like the United States is going through its Plutonic return. So absolutely, we're in that. We're
right
in that
now.
Yeah, right. Like literally today, we've gone through it a few times this year, but literally today we are in. Nikki has a Pluto aspect here. So does my poor Joe. He is feeling it too.
Oh, is he 27 degrees too?
His sun is 27 degrees. And so Pluto's in an inconjunct. So a lot of Joe's health stuff this year has been Pluto being like, okay, we're going to empower you, but there's going to be some challenges. There's going to be some suffering in your empowerment. So Pluto's a tough planet to dance with. Like it is not, I always say to everybody going through Pluto transits, like, if you want to know that Pluto's a planet, let's just go through this Pluto transit consciously. And I have just held people's hand going through their Pluto transits because I've gone through some of mine, and I'm just like, 5 more days. It's an intense thing. So
12 more days.
There you go. We who live in the United States are all experiencing this to some extent, going through a power up, level up in regards to each other and the social. It's in Capricorn, so the social structures of things. We are all feeling this, but those who have like 27 degrees, like Nikki and Joe, are really feeling. Look at your chart. Do you have something 27 degrees? You're getting Plutoed right now.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's interesting about Pluto? I'm going to nerd out for you for a minute here, because you mentioned Pluto being a planet, right? And there's all this controversy on whether or not Pluto is a planet. But I don't think that's all that important, because Pluto is a representative. Pluto represents the entire Kuiper belt, right? So we have the huge belt of asteroids, and Kuiper belt might not be the right one, because I know we have another belt of asteroids. It's like between Saturn and Jupiter. But point being is there's a big belt.
No, it's closer.
Yeah, there's 2 belts, right? But Pluto is definitely part of this huge outer rim of our solar system. This kind of leftover space material that has yet to solidify into planets. And who knows, in a million years, Pluto might be as big as Earth, because it might start colliding with other asteroids within that belt and start creating a bigger size for itself. But what I see it as is a clock. Like Pluto might be like 12 o'clock on this belt, which represents a big clock, right? Mm-hmm. And it's spinning around, and Pluto might not have influence in and of itself, like because of its size. But if you think about all of the planetary bodies that represent that same orbital path that Pluto is on, that might be even more influence than we realize, right? Because if you take all of those asteroids that are in that belt and you combine them together into one giant planet, it might be bigger than any planet in the solar system. So my point being is that there can be more influence in these subtle things, because like ants, they're able to do more by their number than they would do as a singular entity. So it's like an elephant versus, a whole bunch of ants. And I promise you, if an elephant stands on an ant pile, it's going to move, because that elephant doesn't want to get bit by ants any more than we do, because elephants, even though they look thick-skinned, they have really thin skin. I'm really digressing here.
No, that's such a beautiful, I love Pluto as a representative. That is such a cool perspective. And it can take, people who love to, there's always debaters, right? Like, so it can take us out of the debate. And Pluto's a representative. Doesn't matter if it's planet. That's wonderful.
And it
Because
represents potential.
And yeah, it represents potential, and it also represents this broken up energy that like maybe it's why it's so hard is because it's not completely a formed thing yet. We're still forming.
And to bring it back to the philia, it represents a community. It's a community of celestial bodies, right? Whether we call them planets or asteroids or whatever different astronomical terms they have, they're together, right? There is a belt of them, and they are a community, and they all have influence on us because that's the way the universe is created. The universe is one big grid. We are, the Higgs boson wave form of all of us connected. Everything is connected, so all movement creates other movement. It's all this tensegrity of pulling on each other. And this community thing is a perfect representative of how we are all connected. And when one of us moves one direction, it affects the entire group.
I want to bring this because I've been very called to learn about the Kwanzaa tradition. Don't ask me why. I got guided to do that. And so what you do, it's similar to Hanukkah, but very different.
Similar but different.
But similar and different. And you light candles for 7 days. And each candle represents a specific aspect. The first one
sounds familiar.
Is, that's why I got called to it. The first candle that you light is unity. It's about unity and realizing like we're all one.
Yeah, one.
The second aspect was determination. Then third and fourth are very similar and they're very philia. The third day that you do this candle is about your successes and failures are your responsibility, but also your community's responsibility. If you're succeeding, your community needs to be part of that success. If you fail, your community also has to take responsibility for your failure.
It's like thinking of your community like a net, right? People take more risks, like a trapeze artist will take more risk if they know that there's a net. And if you know you can fall back on your community, you can take bigger risks and you can try to accomplish more. Unfortunately, what we have right now is we have billionaires who are living off of the community. Basically, the community is feeding them. They're paying
but they're not
for them
giving back.
To do whatever the hell they want.
They'd rather shoot their penis rocket.
And then if they do poorly as a community, we collectively want to tear them down. And so it's a counter to philia, because ultimately this symbiotic relationship of the singular person in the community, they need to feed each other. And right now they're taking from each other. Right now you have people who are trying to sell as much as they can to take money from people so that they can shoot themselves into space or to do whatever they want, instead of going, okay, now that I have these resources, let me give back. And there is some of that. Let's not just throw the baby out with the bathwater here. There is some
Branson's like, I'm philanthropic.
Yeah, and sure, but I think the energetics of it is that like the community needs to be there as a net to catch these people when they fall and to lift them up so that they can succeed, but that we all succeed together.
And billionaires aside, I think more on a personal level, and something that we had to learn this year is, I have been giving so much to my community for the last decade. And when the fires happened and I put that post out, I only posted it like once. And we ended up getting a lot of support from our community.
Huge support.
And so there is something about, you might not be getting something now, but knowing that your energy putting out there and you supporting your community, it does come back, and it has become a safety net for us.
Absolutely. We wouldn't even be sitting here right now if it wasn't for our community taking care of us. And we are very grateful for any of you who are watching and helped us.
Well, and then the second one is called the second aspect, or the day 4 of Kwanzaa, is about community cooperative economics. That's what
cooperative economics. There's an idea.
Yeah, so it piggybacks on like your successes and failures of your community's problems and also responsibility, right? But this cooperative economics is that we all feed each other. Like if the community's healthy, the individual's healthy. If the individual is healthy, the community's healthy. And what I think is really beautiful in an age that we are so like American dream here of like, you take care of yourself. That's it. You take care of your own. That's going into a very self-important and entitled way, and we become really isolated. I think that's why a lot of depression is happening. That's also like in the 50s when the women had to like cook, clean, da da da. Women don't mind cooking and cleaning and doing all of this. We just don't like doing it alone.
Right.
Put me in a room full of women and let's all cook together and laugh and drink wine and bullshit and gossip and do whatever the fuck we do. And I'm happy.
Well,
but
men are just as happy to go out with a group of guys and build something together. It's like, hey, you take the hammer, I'll take the screwdriver, and I'll take the shovel, and we're all going to create something together. We're just as happy to do that. But that doesn't happen as often anymore. Everybody wants to try to do something on their own.
And we celebrate this thing of these individuals doing something fantastic, where we can start celebrating again, where a collective can. But I'm going to like, all right, Nikki's going on her soapbox. We also have to decide to vote for that, and not just in a political way. It's like the cooperative economics means put your money where your heart is. And if you're going for the glamorous person who you think is shiny or unobtainable, then that's unattainable, and then you're never going to attain that. But if you're really going, wow, that person's really heartfelt, or that person really did take care of me in that moment of crisis, right, I am going to give back to that person. That's what you're voting for. Are you voting for love, or are you voting for ego? Yeah. And and this is something I'm going to say, and check yourself. Are you voting for ego, or are you voting for love? Because I'm telling you, because we're trying to get things off the ground from the essence of love, and we're having a very hard time. So if you want people to continue to be in the essence of love, you have to support the people who are in the frequency of love and not ego. I see a lot of practitioners, a lot of people who are really in their ego, and they are making tons of money shamelessly. They're buying cars and shit, and like they're putting it, I mean, the shit they're buying, I'm like, oh my God. But people are but that's the glamorized version of this spirituality.
Because we all want to imagine that can be us someday, that we can somehow rise above it all, and we can somehow set ourselves apart, and we can somehow become self-sustaining. We can all become billionaires. But the truth is that the real love is if we can all do this together. If we can all lock arms with one another and see what we can accomplish as a group, instead of aggrandizing billionaires and people who are ego-driven, who are showing how amazing they are. We should start to throttle that energy back to the community, throttle that energy back to people who are heartfelt, people who are working really diligently
every day, showing up for you, right? I mean, Mimi's been showing up for over 10 years. She's
perfect example. Like Mimi, you are the embodiment of pragma.
Well,
I show up every
I feel like Nikki and I, like the work we've been doing over the years, like has been Fila. And I was actually taking it back to Philadelphia. I was like, oh, like my family, like that's actually where they're from. I was like, oh my God, is this where it's from? It's probably all my Libra and my South Node in Aquarius too. But I'm like, am I just like living Philadelphia? Yeah. But I was going to bring that around, like Nikki and I for years, 10 plus.
Over a decade.
Yeah, over a decade have been bringing our offerings, our learnings, our highs and our lows to community. And here we are working together to, again, help you through what we've learned, what we're experiencing, help you rise, help you grow, help you learn, help you heal, help you figure out how to work this all. And
how to support you. I mean, and here's us going on our like own, I think, Fila Utia is like, if you value us, we're going to starve if you don't value us. I mean, it just is what it is.
You're going to be left with nothing but egomaniacs.
Ego leadership, which we have, I mean, it doesn't matter what side you vote for. It's still, it's the lesser of
The
two
ego in the red
evils.
tie or the ego in the blue tie? Which would you prefer?
And so it's like we have to start really thinking to ourselves, instead of giving all of our energy to politics, maybe giving energy to the healers, giving energy to the ones that you feel supported up from, the one that keeps showing up for you, that friend that you call in the middle of the night and they'll answer the phone and say, yeah, what do you need? And wake up and hold your hand.
Yep.
Like this, what we value, put our resources in what really truly matters, and that's connection.
Yeah.
And that is us. Like at the end of the day, if all of this fell apart, who would you call?
Well, this is a perfect lead into our last energy center and our last aspect of love. Who would you call? You would call your family. And the people who are closest to you are your family, not necessarily your blood relation family, although that can be the case. But the people who are closest to you are your family. And the aspect of love that connects to the heart chakra is something called storge or storge. I don't really know whether it's pronounced storage or storge. It's STORGE. And storge is the idea of familial love. You know, they describe it as love, a mother love for their child, or the child's love for their mother. But I think it goes beyond that. I think it's familial, and familial is very close in its kind of structure to familiar. So those of the people who are most familiar to you, the people who know you the most, the people who know the real you, the authentic you, the you without the projection, the you without trying to put on airs, the all parts of you, the best of you and the worst of you. Those are the people that we depend on. What's that?
The butt.
The butt, yeah. From the butt to the crown and everything in between. Those are the people that accept you for who you are. And I think on the highest level possible, Storge represents acceptance. You are accepting people for who they are, and you love them because they are near and dear to you. And if you can, and if things get rough, you can depend on them. And if things get rough for them, they can depend on you. There is no greater love than the love for a parent and their child. A parent will quite literally die for their child. And I can say this from my own personal perspective, that I would prefer to die than watch my child die. You know, I would prefer to sacrifice myself for my child, because that is the level of love that you get from the heart. That's the level of love when you truly believe that thing or that person is more important than anything else. And to me, that's storge. That's familial love. It's a love that surpasses everything.
Well, and then it comes full circle to like the story I told when I asked my grandmother about, why. She goes, I wouldn't even think twice. It's like, that was a no-brainer for me, right? It's like she knew that by letting go of her life, she was giving me and my mom a life. And that is a love. That's the Christ-like love
Sacrifice
that I think we lose because in the martyrdom. And it's not about martyrdom. It's about unconditional love in action,
Mm-hmm. I thought this was a great time. This Leantra posted this question a while ago, but I didn't mean to interrupt you by posting it.
No, go ahead.
But I think it's a perfect time. What is the balance point to being less reactive to people who are nasty and still trying to uphold boundaries in the name of self-kindness? Like how, I think this is perfect for Kali energy, which may have been she asked it a while ago, but I think this is a good question, because I think we all struggle with that. Like, how do I stay in my heart and yet still be like, and that's not okay,
Well, I mean, I don't think there's an easy answer to this. I think it's more of a practice. Mm-hmm. I think it's more of taking things on a case-by-case basis and making sure that you are looking for the center point, looking for the balance point in the interaction itself. So instead of making a general statement about people behaving poorly and how to love them anyway, it's more about going, okay, well, let's pick a particular moment and say, okay, let's say it's somebody cutting you off in traffic. Okay. Mm-hmm. What you can do is you can react to that person cutting you off and take it very personally. That person cut me off, which put my life in jeopardy. And how dare they, right? But you can also go, well, maybe that person is dealing with something really crazy in their car. Maybe there was a bee in their car, or maybe they are, you know, late for work and they're driving really fast because they might lose their job. You don't know what my point being is, you don't know what their life is, right? You don't know what's happening in their life. But if you knew intimately what they were going through, you would have much more compassion for how they're behaving. And there's a good chance that if you were put in the exact same position, that you might react the exact same way.
Yeah, it's this thing of it's kind of swirling in my head, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to translate it right, but it's understanding that people are who they are because of what they've been through or what they know. Like, so Ryan and I have been saying this a lot. You don't know what you don't know, right? And
Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
People, you can believe this or not, are doing the best that they can with what they have. And if you were in their shoes with the past experiences that they have been through, you would do the same thing. They're playing the exact role and reacting the exact way that they can based off of what they're capable of.
And pain begets pain. So when someone's in pain, they're going to give out pain. So when you're receiving pain from somebody, you can, if you have a moment of clarity and some, you know, space, you can have compassion going, wow, if that person is giving out pain at that level, they're probably dealing with massive amounts of pain internally, and they're just pushing it out of themselves.
So taking it back to how, when you do the boundaries. So this is, I'm going to take it right back to the heart chakra of the Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you, I love you. First, it's taking self-responsibility without taking fault. Mm-hmm. Just because someone, or you're in a relationship with somebody who's treating you poorly, doesn't mean it's your fault that they're treating you poorly. It's not your responsibility to change them, but it is your responsibility to take care of yourself. So if they're treating you poorly, it's not really your fault on why they're hitting you, but it is your responsibility to get yourself out of that bad situation. Then once you really take responsibility on what your needs are, then you can go into the state of forgiveness. And I always warn about this. So our activations have this simply in the heart chakra one, the heart chakra activation. But when you forgive somebody, this is very interesting that a lot of people have this kind of mushed, like kind of convoluted. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you need to let them back into your life or you're making whatever they did okay. When you forgive yourself, it doesn't mean your past things were okay. What you're saying is you're letting go of the past and you're allowing yourself to soften the attachment you have of what that made it mean for you. And you're setting yourself free. Just because you forgiven somebody doesn't mean you open the door and let the robber back in your house, or you let the abusive guy back into your relationship with them. You forgive them to let go of the anger and the hatred you have for that particular experience. And so
forgiveness is medicine for you.
Yes.
Not for them. I think people get confused thinking that forgiveness is somehow a gift that you're giving to somebody. Like, here, I'm giving you my forgiveness. Aren't I great? Aren't I just an altruistic person? I'm amazing. No, forgiveness is, I don't want to hold on to that. I'm not going to hold on to that anger. I'm not going to hold on to that resentment. I'm not going to hold on to that shame or guilt.
Or fault.
I'm going to let it go. I forgive them, and I, in turn, forgive myself.
And forgiveness of the self is the biggest leap of faith that we can have, because it's really hard to forgive ourselves for putting ourselves in a certain situation that wasn't healthy. But it doesn't mean just forgiving them puts you right back into that state. Forgiveness means that I've learned my lesson. I'm going to let that go, and I'm going to show up for myself and others in a way that's in more harmony with myself and with love.
And once you release that burden, then you can open yourself up to gratitude, which is the next step in the Ho'oponopono, the thank you part. Thank you. Thank you for teaching me a lesson about humility. Thank you for teaching me a lesson about patience. Thank you for teaching me a lesson about compassion.
Or thank you for teaching me about self-compassion and self-worth, and teaching me that I needed a boundary there because I gave up too much of myself, because I didn't value myself. It's the thank you. We did this practice when I lived in India, where even the people, the challengers, the people who pissed us off during the day, at the end of the day, we would sit on the beach and we would all go, okay, that person pissed me off. And we would like bow to that person in our mind and go, thank you, master, for teaching me patience, or teaching me non-reaction, or teaching me to tell them to go fuck themselves and stand up for myself, because I'm so sick and tired of all the old ladies butting me. So that's a story. But it's being thankful for the masters and the challengers of our life, and realizing in that humility that each person, each interaction we're having is here for us and not against us. It's not happening to us, it's happening for us. And that's saying thank you for that, is really honoring the process that you're going through.
And then the final stage is love.
Acceptance.
It's pure acceptance for things can't be any other way. And I love it just the way it is. Brings us back to the agape, which is accepting life as it is, not making any changes, not throwing on any addendums, not saying, well, I will accept life when it does this for me, or I will accept life when people stop behaving this way or that. And it's accepting
when we have a different president or this or whatever it is. We suffer when we reject the moment. We suffer pain within life. Pain is inevitable. We're all going to experience pain. You're not going to make it out alive. Sorry, spoiler alert. But we can minimize suffering. Suffering is the attachment to our own expectation.
Also, the attachment to it being something different than what it is. If you are trying to attach to an idea of what you think life should be,
or your life should
that
be,
attachment is going to cause you suffering.
Or where you should be, or what you should be.
Stop shitting on yourself.
Accept yourself exactly the way you are, because you can't change anyone else at the end of the day, and you can't avoid life happening, but you can honor it, and you can have reverence for it, and you can honor yourself for having to go through it. And that is the depth of unconditional love. It's not sitting above things and going, oh, look at how just like watching a movie. Unconditional love in action is getting hurt and deciding to love anyway.
Beautiful.
Well, we've come full circle.
Yes, right? That was full circle. I just want to say what's so fascinating and what I love so much about the heart is, like, you can see how much through all of this process, how much weaving there is through the chakras. And I want to just take this to the I don't know what to call it, the thing to use the Gemini word, the thingy, the program, there we go, that
the journey.
Journey of Ascension.
The journey of ascension, which takes you through all of these chakras. And somebody just said, such a great combo. The journey of ascension with Nikki and Ryan, speaking of Fila and supporting the people who support you, is beautiful, because it's this and more, weaving you through the chakras, bringing them together, because as we saw today, they're all a part of it. Like, it's not just like, okay, I'm good in my root chakra, I'm good, or I'm good in my heart chakra, I'm good.
Right.
Like, we need to work in and through all of these. And so part of what we've been doing, coming here every Friday doing these lives, is showing you a piece of the journey of ascension so that you can join the program. And through Gaia Blooming, discount code for you. So I encourage you to, check it out, because we all need this clearly, because none of us have this all figured out. We're all in that human process of trying to figure this out.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I appreciate that, Mimi, because that weaving is what we really focused on when we were creating that program, is this idea that you're not just introducing chakras and talking about chakras. There's lots of books out there that do that. There's lots of programs that do that. But what we're doing is we're weaving these things. Sorry, Nikki's trying to charge us up because the phone's dying. We're weaving these energy centers together so that they can work as the community they're intended to work as. None of these chakras are built to live on an island. If you look at the color spectrum itself, there's these nuances of color between each one, right? There's all of this nuance. And if you look at the world, you can see color, but you don't see everything as just blatant color. You see it as a mix and a blend and a harmony of colors. And some colors work really well with each other, and some clash and challenge with each other. But it's all about relationships.
It's about seeing every aspect of the self, and not just seeing, but experiencing all these little subtle aspects of you, and not leaving anything out, and seeing all these little pieces that maybe you did hide in a dark corner, and that can come out and be reintegrated. And what the journey really is just allowing yourself to meet yourself and be supported in that, and that you're not alone in this. And the more that you really meet these little nuanced colors, the more that you are empowered in your wholeness. And so that's what we really strive to do, is for you to love yourself in every aspect, and to be able to bring that to your life and be completely in harmony with what love really is.
Well, we discovered these aspects of love and their connection to the chakras while we were creating the program.
On a heart day.
It came on the heart day, right in the center of the program. And it's something that really struck us, pun intended. And we've been talking about it ever since. But talking about support, I know, Mimi, you're offering some support as well in the new year with your year astrological readings, right?
Yeah, this is definitely a shifty year that we're approaching, and as you can see, I've been able to bring in lots of like, oh, hey, this lesson of balance is going to be part of our astro year ahead. We have some big shifts this year, and so it can be helpful just to dig in, find out how it's going to be for you. So I have the year ahead 2023 reading, and I also do, other kinds of readings, as Nikki is also offering some tarot readings right now, and we were discussing. Let us know if you'd be interested. But Nikki and I used to do readings together, which was really fun. So, if you're wanting that, reach out to us and we can see what we can put together for you. Because, again, none of us have it figured out. And none of us know, this isn't about like psychic predictions, but it's how are you going to work with the energies? And a lot of times we can get so much insight, from our non-island self, from others out there. And so, reach out to us so you can get a reading, book a reading.
Body some of that philia, that feeling love.
Yeah, like she said, if you go on our pages, Mimi's, and then you can email Mimi at Mimi Clark, Mimi at
gmail.com, Mimi Clark at gmail.com.
And mine is Nicole at NicoleOman.com. And you can just look on my Facebook page. I have a post about it. Also, if you want to look more into our program, go to Guided by the Omens, and it's going to be on the Ascend page. We also have our beautiful Activate page, where it will activate your chakras, and you will get 7 really beautiful visual meditations that will really help activate these aspects into your subconscious and your unconscious mind, so you can start living in that way.
We also have the attunement, which is kind of like a liquid Drano for your chakras. So that's free. You can just go onto our site and connect to that one, and that one will open up the energy channels for you.
And if you come back to this video later, whether on YouTube or on Facebook, after this is over and uploaded, I will post all of these links so that you will have them. I did that for if you want to check out any of the past ones, Root, Sacro, which was an interesting conversation. I have those links there, so you can always go back and dig into those conversations too. If you're like, that sacral stuff was pretty interesting today. Let's see. You can go back and watch that. It's on the Gaia Blooming YouTube channel, but it's also you'd have to scroll back a little ways, but it's on the Gaia Blooming Facebook page as well.
Awesome.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We really appreciate you listening. And I know these are long, but they are packed.
Cover a lot of ground.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're really grateful for you. So if you want to connect with us further, please look into that. And we'll see you next week on Friday.
Well, are we going to do Ryan's meditation to take us out?
Oh yeah, we
gotta bring our bubble back into the heart, right?
The bubble back.
All right. So everybody find yourself in a nice tall seated position, nice elongated spine. Close your mouth, breathe through your nose, and start to connect to your breath. Remember, we've been sitting inside this beautiful love bubble, this heart chakra energy bubble that has been protecting our experience and our conversation and our ideas, our beliefs, our loves. And we're not going to let go of that energy. We're just going to condense it. We're going to condense it down into the heart. With each exhale, we're going to allow that bubble to shrink in size. To the size of a beach ball. To the size of a basketball. To the size of a softball. To the size of a golf ball. To that tiny little point of bright green light in the center of your chest. And just allow all of the love that you have for yourself and others and for this entire universe just reside there in that spot right in the center of your being. Thank you, thank you, thank you. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes, come back to this space and time.
Well, thank you for joining us in our hearts today. We will be here next year, 2023, next Friday, to speak about the throat chakra, and that is going to be a full moon. So
Wow.
to be some interesting energy. So join us next week for that, and go check out the links. Like I said, I will post them under this video once we are finished. And have a beautiful holiday weekend. Be safe. Check out my video because there's some interesting astro. So check out Friday's video so you can tune into that. And have a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste in touch.